The rain hammered the city like a relentless drumbeat, turning the streets into rivers of black water that reflected the flickering neon signs above. It was past midnight on a forgotten corner downtown.
Please, we mean no
The glamorous
harm. Let us help.
skyscrapers
Stay back.
gave way to
I
shattered
don't know
alleys
you.
and
It's okay.
overflowing
We're here to
dumpsters.
assist. Trust us.
Most people hurried past with unbreached umbrellas and averted eyes, but not her. Arya had been on the streets for 3 years now, ever since the fire that took her family and left her with nothing but the clothes on her back. At 22, she was a paradox, a homeless girl with a body sculpted like a warrior's. Broad shoulders, powerful arms corded with muscle from endless days hauling scrap metal for pennies, legs that could outrun trouble or stand firm against it. Her dark hair was cropped short, practical, and her eyes, a piercing storm gray, missed nothing. People whispered about her. The Amazon of the alleys, they called her, half in fear, half in awe. She slept under bridges, fought off predators with fists that had broken more than a few jaws, and somehow, through it all, held on to a quiet, unbreakable kindness. That night, the storm had driven her to seek shelter under the awning of an abandoned warehouse. She was rummaging through a discarded bag of fast food for anything edible when she heard it. A muffled cry, sharp and desperate, cutting through the downpour. She froze, listening. There was again, coming from the alley across the street, a child's voice, terrified. Without hesitation, Arya dropped the bag and sprinted across the flooded road, her worn boots splashing through puddles. The alley was pitch black, lit only by occasional lightning flashes. She followed the sound to an overturned trash bin, where a small figure was trapped beneath a collapsed metal shelf, pinned by debris from the storm. "Hey, hold on, kid," she shouted, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. The boy couldn't have been more than 12. Pale and trembling, his legs twisted unnaturally beneath the weight. One look told her they were broken, badly. Blood mixed with rainwater soaked his jeans, and his wheelchair lay crumpled nearby, shattered by the falling shelf. He was conscious, but barely, his dark eyes wide with pain and fear. "It's okay, I've got you," Arya said softly, kneeling in the mud. She gripped the heavy shelf with both hands, muscles bulging under her threadbare jacket as veins stood out on her forearms. With a guttural roar that echoed off the walls, she heaved it upward, inch by agonizing inch, until she could shove it aside. The boy gasped as the pressure released, but he cried out when she tried to move him. "Sure, easy. I'm going to get you out." Her hands, callous and strong, were surprisingly gentle as she scooped him up, cradling him against her chest like he weighed nothing. He was light, so fragile compared to the burdens she carried daily. Thunder cracked overhead as she carried him out of the alley, scanning for help. Sirens wailed in the distance, but too far. A delivery truck idled at a red light nearby, its driver oblivious inside. Arya banged on the door with her elbow until a man jumped. "Call an ambulance. Kid's hurt bad, legs crushed." The driver fumbled for his phone, eyes wide at the sight of this muscular young woman, soaked and fierce, holding a bleeding child. As they waited, Arya sat on the curb, shielding the boy from the rain with her body. She tore strips from her own shirt to bind his wounds, talking to him the whole time to keep him awake. "What's your name, little guy?" "Ethan," he whispered through chattering teeth. "Ethan. Strong name. You're tough, Ethan. You held on until I found you. That's something." He managed a weak smile. You're really strong." She chuckled softly. "Gotta be out here." The ambulance arrived in a blaze of lights, paramedics swarming. They took Ethan carefully from her arms, loading him onto a stretcher. One of them paused, looking at her mud-streaked face. "You saved his life, miss. You should come with us, get checked out." She shook her head, stepping back into the shadows. "I'm fine. Just make sure he's okay." As the doors closed and the ambulance sped away, Arya melted back into the night, unaware that the boy she had carried, Ethan Harrington, was the only heir to one of the world's largest tech empires. His father, Victor Harrington, a reclusive billionaire whose name commanded boardrooms and headlines, had been searching frantically for his missing son after Ethan slipped away from his private caretakers during a rare outing. By morning, hospital security footage would capture the moment a mysterious young woman brought in the injured heir. By noon, Victor himself would be scouring the city for her. And by evening, private investigators would comb the streets, armed with a description. Tall, muscular, short dark hair, gray eyes that burned with quiet fire. But Arya, curled up under her bridge with a stolen blanket, had no idea that the life she saved was about to turn hers upside down forever. Days passed in the blur of survival. Arya scavenged as always, lifting heavy crates at a scrapyard for cash on the table, ignoring the ache in her own muscles from that night. She pushed the memory aside, helping people when she could was just what you did, even if no one ever helped you back. Then, one foggy evening as she sat by a small fire in an empty lot, sharing a can of beans with an old veteran named Gus, black SUVs rolled up silently. Men in suits emerged, polite but firm. "Are you the woman who rescued a boy from an alley last week?" One asked, holding up a grainy photo from the hospital camera. Arya tensed, ready to run. Trust no one, that was a rule. But before she could bolt, another door opened, and a man in a wheelchair was pushed out. Ethan, bandaged but alive, his face lighting up when he saw her. "It's her," he exclaimed. "Dad, that's her, the one who saved me." The older man beside him, silver-haired and commanding even from a seated position, looked at Arya with eyes that had built fortunes from nothing. "Young lady," Victor Harrington said, his voice carrying the weight of gratitude deeper than oceans, "you pulled my son from certain death. I don't know how to begin to repay that." Arya stood slowly, wary, her powerful frame silhouetted against the firelight. She glanced at the luxury vehicles, the security, the boy smiling at her like she was a hero. "I don't need repaying," she said quietly. "Just glad he's okay." Victor smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but I insist you come with us. At least for tonight. A hot meal, a shower, whatever you need. No strings." Ethan wheeled closer. "Please? I want to thank you properly." Against every instinct honed by years on the street, Arya felt something shift inside her. Those eyes, Ethan's, held no pity, only admiration. She nodded once. As she climbed into the SUV, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows, Arya had no way of knowing that this was only the beginning. The Harrington mansion awaited, with its secrets, its opulence, and dangers far greater than alley storms. Rivals who would kill to control the empire, a family fractured by loss, and a young heir who saw in her not just a savior, but someone who might finally fill the emptiness in his world. Little did she know, the muscular, homeless girl who lived by strength and solitude was about to step into a life where her greatest battles wouldn't be fought with fists, but with a heart she thought she'd buried long on the outskirts of the city, like a fortress carved from marble and glass. Its gates swinging open silently as a convoy of SUVs glided up the winding driveway. Arya pressed her forehead to the cool window, watching manicured lawns and glowing fountains slide past, things she had only seen in magazines scavenged from trash bins. The air inside the vehicle smelled of leather and subtle cologne, so different from the damp concrete and smoke she knew. Ethan chattered excitedly beside her, his wheelchair secured in the spacious back seat. "You're going to love the house, Arya. There's a pool and a gym, and my room has this huge window that looks over the whole valley. Dad had it built special after my accident." Victor Harrington sat opposite them, his sharp gaze softened whenever it landed on his son. He had lost his wife, Ethan's mother, to the same rare degenerative disease that had stolen the boy's ability to walk years earlier. Since then, Victor had poured his grief into two things: building an even larger empire and shielding Ethan from the world that had already taken so much. But the boy's spirit refused to be caged. That night in the alley had been Ethan's quiet rebellion, a secret outing to see the city lights without bodyguard hovering. Now, as they stepped or wheeled into the grand foyer, crystal chandeliers casting golden light across polished floors, Arya felt every inch the intruder. Her boots left faint muddy prints on the marble, and she shifted uncomfortably in her torn jacket and faded jeans. Servants appeared as if from nowhere, offering warm towels and discreet glances that held neither judgment nor warmth, only curiosity. "Maria will show you to a guest suite," Victor said, his tone leaving no room for refusal. "You'll have fresh clothes, a bath, whatever you need. Tomorrow we'll talk." Arya opened her mouth to protest. She didn't belong here, didn't want charity. But Ethan reached out and touched her hand. Please stay. Just one night. For me. Those eyes again. She sighed. One night. The guest suite was larger than any apartment she'd ever dreamed of. A king bed draped in silk, a bathroom with heated floors and a tub deep enough to swim in, a balcony overlooking the city she'd survived in for so long. Maria, the kind-faced housekeeper, laid out soft towels and an array of clothes in different sizes. Simple jeans, tees, hoodies that looked brand new. Mr. Harrington said, to make you comfortable, miss. Nothing fancy unless you want it. Arya stood under the shower for nearly an hour, letting the hot water wash away layers of grime and memory. When she finally emerged, skin pink and hair dripping, she caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Clean, strong, almost beautiful in a fierce way. She pulled on a black tee and gray sweatpants that actually fit her broad frame, the fabric soft against skin used to roughness. Dinner was served in a small dining room. Just the three of them. No long banquet table, no army of staff. Victor had arranged it that way on purpose. Ethan dominated the conversation, telling Arya about his online tutors, his love of coding, the virtual reality rig he used to walk through digital worlds. Victor listened more than he spoke, watching the way his son's face lit up around this stranger who had carried him through the rain. After dessert, chocolate mousse that melted on Arya's tongue. Ethan yawned, and a nurse appeared to wheel him to his room. He hugged Arya tightly before leaving. You're my hero, you know that? She ruffled his hair awkwardly. Get some sleep, kid. Alone with Victor in the quiet room, the air grew heavier. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter and slid one across the table. I don't drink much, she said. Nor do I, but tonight feels like it calls for it. He raised his glass slightly. To Guardians in the Dark. She took a cautious sip, burning smooth, expensive. You don't owe me anything, Mr. Harrington. Victor, and I disagree. You gave me back my son. There's no currency large enough for that. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. But I'm not here to throw money at you and send you away. I'd like to offer something else. A job. Arya arched an eyebrow. Doing what? I don't have a resume. Security. Personal protection for Ethan. He's vulnerable. And after tonight's scare, I realize the usual bodyguards, big men in suits, make him feel like a prisoner. You, on the other hand, he trusts instantly. He admires you. And from what I've seen, you're more than capable. She laughed softly, a low sound. You want a homeless girl as your son's bodyguard. I want the woman who lifted a steel shelf off a trapped child with her bare hands. The one who didn't hesitate in a storm. Strength isn't just muscle, Arya. Though you have plenty, it's choice. You chose to help when no one would have blamed you for walking away. She stared into her glass, swirling the liquid. A roof, regular food, safety, and time with Ethan, who somehow made the world feel less sharp. But trust was a currency she'd spent long ago. What's the catch? Victor's smile was small, knowing there are always catches in my world. Boardroom battles, corporate espionage, rivals who play dirty. Keeping Ethan safe won't always mean alleys and storms. Sometimes it will mean gala dinners and smiling at people who'd sell their own children for a bigger share of my company. But I think you can handle both. She met his gaze steadily. And if I say no, then you walk out tomorrow with enough money to start anywhere new. No questions. But I hope you won't. Silence stretched between them, thick with possibility. Upstairs in the quiet of her room, Arya stood on the balcony long into the night. The city glittered below like scattered diamonds, beautiful and cruel. She thought of the bridge she'd slept under last week, the hunger, the constant vigilance. Then she thought of Ethan's smile, the way he looked at her like she was unbreakable. She didn't sleep much. Morning brought sunlight flooding through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. Ethan was already in the kitchen, grinning over pancakes. Dad says you're thinking about staying. Say yes. Please. Victor entered then, phone to his ear, expression tightening as he listened. He ended the call with a clipped word and turned to them. There's been a breach. Someone accessed Ethan's medical files last night. Detailed schedules, locations. It's not random. Aria's instincts sharpened instantly. How serious? Serious enough that I'm doubling security. But I'd rather have you. She looked at Ethan, who suddenly seemed smaller in his chair, eyes wide. Someone out there wanted to hurt him, or use him to hurt Victor. Her jaw set. Then I'm in, but on my terms. I protected my way. No suits, no earpieces unless necessary. And I train him too, self-defense he can use from the chair. Strength isn't just standing. Victor extended his hand. Deal. Victor stepped to the podium at 11:55, the massive screens behind him flickering to life with simulations of neural pathways lighting up like constellations. His voice carried over the hush. Tonight, we don't just announce technology. We announce hope. The countdown began at 11:59. Giant numerals projected across the ballroom ceiling. The crowd joined in, voices rising. 10, 9, 8. That was when the lights died. Not a flicker. A total, deliberate blackout. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in cold red glow. Screams erupted. In the chaos, mass figures in tactical gear poured from service entrances, moving with military precision. Heir's mercenaries, bought and paid with years of bitterness. Arya was already moving, shoving through panicked elites toward the stage. She vaulted the security barricade in one fluid motion, landing beside Ethan just as the first assailant reached the platform. Her fist connected with his jaw in a crack that silenced nearby screams. He dropped like a stone. She grabbed Ethan's chair, spinning it to shield him with her body. Plan C, she shouted into her mic. Victor, unflinching even now, hit a concealed button on his watch. Steel shutters began descending over exits, trapping attackers inside with them, but also buying time. Gunfire stuttered in the dark. Arya felt a round graze her shoulder, hot and sharp, but she didn't slow. She scooped Ethan from his chair. He was light, always so light, and sprinted toward the hidden panel behind the stage backdrop. Bullets sparked off marble around her feet. She kicked the panel open, revealing the private elevator that led to the rooftop helipad. Dad! Ethan cried, twisting to look back. Victor was right behind them, blood on his sleeve from a shallow wound, face fierce with determination. I'm here. Go! The elevator door sealed just as more mercenaries reached it. They rode up in tense silence, the building trembling faintly with distant explosions. Diversions planted by Heir's team to sow maximum fear. On the roof, wind whipped snow into spirals under floodlights. 2 helicopters waited, one theirs, one not. Heir's pilot was already lifting off, clearly intending to block escape. Arya set Ethan down, ripped open a maintenance crate they prepared days ago, and pulled out a compact grappling launcher. Trust me, she told Ethan, eyes blazing. He grinned despite everything. Always. She fired the grapple into the enemy chopper's landing skid, cable locking tight. With a roar that came from deep in her core, she planted her feet and hauled, muscles corded, veins standing out like steel cables, until the helicopter yawed violently, pilot fighting controls. One more impossible pull, and it tilted, rotor wash blasting snow in a cyclone, forcing it to veer away or crash. Their own pilot gunned the engine. Arya lifted Ethan aboard, Victor climbing in after. But as she turned to follow, the rooftop access door exploded outward. Marcus Heir himself stepped through, flanked by 4 armed men, older than the photos, thinner, eyes burning with decades' resentment. You cost me everything, Victor, he snarled. Now I take what's left. He raised a pistol toward the helicopter, toward Ethan visible in the open door. Arya didn't think. She charged. The first guard went down with a spinning kick that shattered his knee. The second caught an elbow to the temple. She ducked under gunfire, rolled, came up inside the third man's guard and drove her fist into his solar plexus. So hard, he folded in half. The fourth hesitated a fraction too long. Long enough for her to wrench his rifle away and slam the butt into his helmet. Heir fired. The bullet tore across her side, fire blooming, but she kept coming. She tackled him to the icy concrete, pinning his gun hand. her blood dripping onto his expensive coat. "You don't touch that boy," she growled, voice raw. "Not ever." Behind her, Victor leaned from the helicopter, pistol steady in his good hand. "It's over, Marcus." Police choppers crested the skyline then, searchlights pinning the roof in blinding white. Hale's remaining men threw down weapons. Hale thrashed beneath her, screaming threats even as cuffs snapped around his wrists. Arya staggered to her feet, pressing a hand to her side, vision tunneling. Strong arms caught her, Victor's, pulling her aboard as the doors slammed shut. The helicopter lifted into the night sky just as midnight struck across the city. Fireworks erupted below, 1,000 bursts of color painting the clouds gold and crimson and violet. From the air, the tower looked small, the chaos contained. Sirens wailed, but up here there was only wind and light, and the three of them. Ethan reached for her hand, tears on his cheeks, but smiling wider than she'd ever seen. "We did it." She managed a tired laugh, pain throbbing but distant. "We did." Victor wrapped an arm around her shoulders, careful of her wounds, and pressed his forehead to hers for a breathless moment. "You magnificent, impossible woman," he whispered. "You saved us both." Again. Paramedics waited at the private airstrip, but before they swarmed, Victor turned to the pilot. "Circle the city once. Let them see." The helicopter banked over downtown, fireworks still thundering in celebration of a new year none of them had been sure they'd reach. Ethan leaned against Arya, her arm around him protectively even as blood seeped through her shirt. Victor held her other hand, fingers laced tight. Below, millions cheered the turning of the year, unaware of the battle fought in the shadows above them. But up here, in their small circle, something deeper turned. A family forged not by blood, but by fire and choice. Months later, when the trials were done and Hale's empire crumbled, the world would hear the official story. A thwarted corporate sabotage, a brilliant launch delay but ultimately triumphant. The neural interface rolled out to hospitals, changing lives. Ethan took his first unassisted steps in a quiet garden, Arya steadying him, Victor watching with tears he no longer hid. And on quiet evenings, when the city sparkled beyond mansion windows, they would sit together. Arya no longer in staff quarters, but in rooms beside theirs, her strength now the foundation they all leaned on. She had come from nothing, muscles built from survival, heart scarred by loss. She had lifted steel shells and broken jaws, and carried a boy through storms. But the greatest thing she ever lifted was hope. Hers, Ethan's, Victor's, out of the darkest night, and into a dawn brilliant enough to rival any fireworks. And somewhere, in alleys still cold and unforgiving, people would tell the story. The homeless girl with storm-gray eyes who became a legend, who proved that real power isn't measured in billions or boardrooms. It's measured in the lives you refuse to let go of, in the hearts you choose to protect, in the love you finally allow to protect you back. As spring bloomed across the estate and Ethan ran, across the grass toward her waiting arms, Arya looked up at the endless sky and smiled. She had saved the Billionaire's heir once upon a midnight storm. But in the end, they had saved her too. And that was the most magnificent miracle of all. The first weeks blurred into a strange new rhythm. Arya moved into staff quarters that were still luxurious by her old standards, a private room, bathroom. Even a small gym Victor had stocked with free weights and a heavy bag when he learned she trained daily to stay sharp. She shadowed Ethan to his therapy sessions, his coding lessons, his quiet moments reading on the terrace. They became a team. He taught her basic programming, laughing when she cursed at bugs in the code. She taught him how to use leverage and momentum to throw someone bigger, adapting every move for his seated reality. But beneath the surface, tension coiled. Strange cars lingered too long at the gates. Anonymous emails arrived with photos of Ethan taken from a distance. Victor's security team traced them to shell companies linked to Marcus Hale, his former partner who'd been forced out years ago after embezzlement. Hale had never forgiven the betrayal, and now, with Victor preparing to launch a revolutionary neural interface that would change medicine forever, something that could one day let Ethan walk again. The stakes were astronomical. One afternoon, as Arya pushed Ethan's chair through the gardens, teaching him to spot blind angles, her phone buzzed. A new burner she'd insisted on. A text from an unknown number. Tell Harrington to withdraw the patent or the boy pays. She deleted it instantly, but her blood ran cold. She glanced around. The garden seemed peaceful, birds singing, fountains murmuring. But she felt eyes. That night, she confronted Victor in his study. This isn't just corporate jealousy. Heir wants blood. Victor's face was granite. I know. I've been preparing. But I won't let him touch my son. Then we prepare harder. Training intensified. Arya taught Ethan pressure points, escape techniques, how to use his chair as a weapon. She ran drills with the security team, earning their respect when she disarmed 2 ex-military guards in under 10 seconds. Victor watched sometimes, pride and worry war in his eyes. And slowly, inevitably, something else shifted. Late-night talks with Victor over coffee when Ethan slept about loss, survival, the cost of power. He saw the scars on her arms from the fire, asked gentle questions she actually answered. She saw the exhaustion behind his control, the fear he hid from everyone else. One evening, after a particularly close call, a drone spotted hovering near the estate. Arya found Victor on the terrace, staring at the city lights. "You should cancel the launch," she said quietly, joining him. "I can't. It's bigger than me now. That tech could help millions, including Ethan." She leaned on the railing beside him, their shoulders almost touching. "Then we make sure he lives to see it." He turned to her, eyes searching. "Why does this matter so much to you? Beyond the job." She hesitated, wind lifting her short hair. "Because someone once didn't save the people I loved. I couldn't do anything then. I was just a kid. But now, I can. For him." Victor reached out, brushing a stray strand from her face with surprising tenderness. The air between them crackled. Inside, Ethan called from his room. Another nightmare. They both moved at once, the moment broken but not lost. As winter deepened and threats circled closer, Arya discovered resources within the mansion she hadn't expected. Old blueprints in a library showing hidden passages, a panic room disguised as a wine cellar. Even a small arsenal Victor reluctantly revealed. She spent hours memorizing layouts, planning contingencies. But the real danger came disguised as trust. A new physical therapist arrived, highly recommended. Dr. Elena Voss, elegant and professional, with impeccable credentials. Ethan liked her immediately. She had a gentle touch and innovative techniques. Arya's instincts prickled, but the background check was flawless. Too flawless. It was during a session in the sunlit gym that it happened. Ethan laughed as Dr. Voss helped him with resistance bands, Arya watching from the doorway. Then the woman's hand moved too quickly, toward a pressure point on Ethan's neck, a syringe glinting in her other palm. Arya exploded across the room like a force of nature, slamming into Voss and sending the syringe flying. They crashed the mats in a tangle of limbs. Voss was trained, Special Forces level, but Arya was raw power and desperation. She pinned the woman's arm, knee digging into her back. "Who sent you?" Arya growled. Voss spat blood, smiling. "You can't stop what's coming." Security swarmed in, cuffing her. But the damage was done. Trust shattered. The realization that enemies had infiltrated the very heart of their sanctuary. Victor held Ethan that night as the boy shook, whispering promises. Arya stood guard outside the door, fists clenched, rage simmering. Later, in the study, Victor poured whiskey with shaking hands. "They're getting bolder. Heir's declaring war. Then we fight back," Arya said, voice steel. "Not just defense. We find him. We end this." Victor looked at her for a long moment. "You're not just a bodyguard anymore, are you?" She met his gaze, heart pounding. "No, I'm not." Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing the estate in silence. But inside, plans formed in hushed voices. Counterstrikes, alliances, risks that could destroy everything. And in the quiet spaces between strategy sessions, stolen glances lingered longer. Hands brushed with intent, walls crumbled brick by brick. Because Arya had saved Ethan's life once with her body. Now she would save it with everything she had left to give, including the heart she thought the streets had killed long ago. As New Year's Eve approached, bringing with it the scheduled launch event where Victor would unveil the neural interface to the world, the mansion buzzed with final preparations and unspoken dread. Hale's silence since the therapist's arrest felt like the calm before a storm. Arya stood on the balcony again, watching fireworks test in the distance, Ethan asleep inside, Victor working late. She touched the scar on her arm, remembering fire and loss. This time, she would not lose. Not him. Not them. Whatever came next. The clock struck 11:45 on New Year's Eve, and the grand ballroom of the Harrington Tower glittered like a captured galaxy. Crystal chandeliers dripped light over 1,000 guests in couture and diamonds, all gathered to witness Victor unveil the neural interface that could rewrite the future of medicine. Champagne flowed, orchestras played, cameras flashed. But beneath the splendor, security moved like shadows. Arya among them, no longer in threadbare jeans, but in a tailored black suit that hugged her powerful frame, earpiece discreet, eyes scanning every face. Ethan sat on a raised platform beside his father, dressed in a midnight blue tuxedo, his wheelchair customized with subtle carbon fiber reinforcements Arya had insisted on. He looked regal, nervous, excited all at once. Every few minutes his gaze found her in the crowd, and she nodded once, steady, reassuring. They had rehearsed every contingency, hidden passages, emergency protocols, even a lightweight exoskeleton prototype tucked beneath his chair that could let him stand and walk a few steps if escape demanded it.